Welcome to the 10th part of SpringBoot Tips series. In this video, we are going to learn how to create REST API documentation using springdoc-openapi library. OpenAPI specification is a standard language-agnostic way to describe RESTful APIs so that anybody can look at the docs and then they can understand what the service is providing. And Swagger is a tool that implements OpenAPI, and it provides a lot of tools to create the specification, to view the API in a UI format. So it provides a lot of tools. For Spring Boot application, there are two most popular libraries that supports generating the REST API documentation. One is SpringFox and another one is OpenAPI is springdoc-openapi library. So I see in the recent version of SpringFox is not updated to support the latest version of Spring Boot, and that's why I am using this springdoc-openapi library to generate the REST API documentation. Probably by the time you are watching this video, SpringFox might be updated to support new version also. So let us see how we can add REST API documentation using springdoc-openapi library. We have a sample Spring Boot application here, which is a simple REST API for managing bookmarks, and we have users management as well. So we are using Spring Security JWT Token based authentication for this application. So let me quickly walk you through the code. Here we have user entity, and we have email and password to authenticate, and then we have this role, which is there are three different types of roles, and we have Spring Data API repository for user, and then right now regarding users we have only this login endpoint where user provide the uh, authentication request using email and password, and once the user successfully authenticated we are going to return access token and expires time. So this is about users, and here in bookmarks package we have bookmark entity which stores title and URL, and we have bookmark JPA repository, and we have bookmark service, and we have bookmark controller. So here this endpoint for creating a new bookmark is secured with pre-authorized annotation so that only authenticated users who have role admin can perform this operation only, and rest of the API can be called by anonymous users as well. And let us see our security configuration. So here this is a user detail service implementation where we are for the given email we are fetching the user and then mapping it to a Spring Security user, and we have this filter that takes care of reading the authorization token, and then if the user is providing JWT token bearer token, it will pass and then set the security context. And this is a token helper to read the details from the token or generating the token, all some utility methods. And finally here we have web security configuration. We are using Spring Security, and we have configured all the details for our REST API. Okay, so I'm not going into too many details of this application because our main focus is about how to create this Swagger documentation for our application. Okay. Now, with this application, what we have so far, let us run the application and see how we can use this application. Okay. So right now, first I am able to call this /API/bookmarks endpoint because this is a publicly available endpoint. We don't need authentication to call it. Again, for fetching one bookmark by ID, we don't need authentication. However, to create this a new bookmark, we need authentication. If we don't provide the authorization header with the access token, it's going to say forbidden. So we need to provide authentication token. So there is a authentication API login endpoint where I can provide these credentials, and if I trigger this API, I can get this access token. And if I go back to this creating new bookmark endpoint, and I can go to header section and add authorization, and I need to prefix this bearer and then add the token here. Now I'm able to create this new bookmark. So if I go back and here fetch all, I can see Quarkus bookmark is also added. So this is the application we have, and now let us see how we can add support for generating Swagger documentation. So first let us add the dependency required for adding springdoc-openapi support. So here we can add this springdoc-openapi UI library that will also come up with Swagger UI support. So here I can take this and add the library. So this auto configures the support for generation of Swagger documentation. And if you want to customize, there are a lot of properties that we can use to customize, but let's start with the defaults. And once we add this dependency, we can access the Swagger documentation on localhost 8080/swaggerui.html. So let us try to access localhost. So here we can see this Swagger documentation auto-generated based on our application endpoints. So it shows we have bookmark controller and it exposes 3 endpoints, and then we have authentication controller which is having only 1 endpoint. So also because we are using various Java beans for returning the responses or accepting the request payloads, all those details we can see it here. So what are the fields that are expected from authentication request object, authentication response object, bookmark. So all those details we can see it here. Now let us try out this API bookmarks feature. So we don't have to provide any input. So if we execute, we can see these are the details we got. Similarly, if we try to do this post API bookmarks to create a new bookmark, let us try. We don't need to provide the ID. So here, let's say open API and paste for them. So if I execute, it will throw status is 403 forbidden because I haven't provided authentication token, JWT's authentication token. So what I can do, I can authenticate myself, and here username is admin@gmail.com and admin, execute, and here I can get this access token here, and I'm copying it. So here I don't see a provision to add the authorization header because the API specification is auto-generated from the code we have. So the library that we added is looking at these signatures and then automatically generating the Swagger documentation. So for create bookmark, it doesn't see any need to add the header. So it is not generating any option to provide the header. Let us say if we have this added, having this requirement of request header from name equals to authorization string auth header. So let us say we have this signature for this create bookmark, and if we restart and refresh our API, so now we can see it is asking for authorization, which is as a header. So this generates like this, and now we can try it out, and then we are able to provide this authorization token. But without using this token here, just for the sake of documentation, adding this parameter request header here into our method signature doesn't feel good. There is a better way to provide the JWT authentication token globally for all secured endpoints. So let us remove this and create a configuration class for Swagger configuration, Swagger config, and it is going to be a Spring configuration class. And here let us define this Open API definition, and let us give some info at info. So here we can give various parameters, title, description, license, and all those details. So right now let us simply give a title, Spring Boot Tips API, and also give version as v1. Okay, and we can use this security scheme annotation to configure our JWT authentication based scheme. So let us give a name to it. I'm going to give JWT bearer auth. You can give whatever the name you like, and type would be HTTP, and bearer format is JWT, and scheme would be JWT. Sorry, scheme would be bearer. Okay. Okay. So once we add this one, if we restart, and here if we refresh, we can see this new authorize button here. We can click on it and then enter the token here once. So let us get the token. So right now, if we give admin@gmail.com and admin and execute the API call and get the access token. And while calling this create new bookmark, try it out and run the ID. First, let us authorize ourselves. Okay, here we don't need to give the prefix of bearer. We can just give the value, token value, and authorize. And here, let us simply try it out with what are the default values here. If you notice, it doesn't include the header, authorization header here, and we still get 403 forbidden. Because once we have configured the security scheme, whatever the endpoints that we are trying to protect, we need to give configure that security scheme. So here we can use this operation annotation, and here we can give whatever the description we want to give for our API endpoint. So here create a new bookmark, and security would be security requirement, and name would be whatever the name that we gave in our configuration here. Okay. Now if we restart, let us copy this token once, refresh. Okay. Here, if you try to create a new bookmark and you don't, let us check, are we authorized? No. I'm going to give the authentication token again and authorize. And here I'm going to execute this Now we can see authorization token with bearer prefix already automatically added. I don't have to provide through any header over here. It automatically added. So once we configure this security scheme here for whatever the endpoints that we want to make secure, we can add this at operation and security requirement and giving the same name as this one here. So it automatically takes care of based on the scheme and JWT format. So it is going to add appropriate header as authorization, bearer token, and add this token here. So right now it is successfully created this new bookmark. Okay, but here let us say we have a controller where all of the endpoints are secured, and instead of adding this for every handler method, what we can do, we can comment out, let's assume all these endpoints are secured. So what we can do, instead of adding this at operation for every method, we can add this at security requirement and name equals to same this JWT bearer auth at the uh, controller level. So this security scheme is going to be applied for all the methods. You don't need to add at the handler each method level. Okay. So let us restart. So right now, earlier when you see, when we add this at operation and security scheme only for this one, you can see this lock icon only for secured endpoint. So for all others, there is no lock icon here. Right now, we applied this annotation at the controller level and we restarted. If you refresh this page, you can see all the endpoints are secured right now. So that's a way to identify, okay, this API endpoint needs this authentication. And first we get authentication token and then authorize ourselves, and then we can make this API calls for these secured endpoints as well. So right now, these names, bookmark controller and authentication controller, and all these details are auto-generated by inspecting our code right now. But what if we want to customize this? And also, if you look at it, there is no description or there is no description of what status code will be written. And what if this returns multiple status codes like 201 and 403 if not authenticated. So looking at this API documentation right now, there is no way to figure it out. We can customize those using annotations in our code, and we can make them generated in the description itself. So what we can do, so instead of, let's say, bookmark controller, I want to show it as a bookmark. So what I can do, I can use this tag annotation from OpenAPI package, and here I can give name as bookmarks. Okay, and if I restart this, so you can see this is changed to bookmarks. And also this acts as a grouping mechanism also. For example, you have multiple controllers. Let us say you have another tag controller. Okay, and it is also having a REST controller, and it is also having a simple and whatever get mapping. So API slash tags. Let's say we have this endpoint right now. If we restart, by default, it is going to be displayed under tag hyphen controller, right? So here you can see bookmarks is a different one and tag controller is a different one. Let's say I want to group all these bookmark related API endpoints into one category. So what I can do, I can just give same tag name bookmarks. Okay. So if I give it, So you can see API tags is also displayed under bookmarks category. So that's how you can group related API endpoints into one category here using tag. And one more thing is we may want to show more details about our REST API endpoints. Right now, here if you see this create bookmarks, it is only showing this response code created, but it doesn't reveal you if you call this endpoint without authentication token, you are going to get 403. So what we can do, we can use this annotation called API responses, and we can give it. So it is going to be at API response description successfully created new bookmark. In that case, you are going to get status code as 200. Okay, and let's say you have another one, forbidden, and you make it 403. So like that, you can give more details if you restart the application now, and if you refresh. So here, by mistake, we gave 200. It should be 201. So here we can see, okay, this API is going to return so and so the status code, and this is the scenario, and this is the response code if it is forbidden. So we can give more details about what are the API responses we are returning. Okay. Seen how we can use this springdoc-openapi library to generate REST API documentation automatically in our Spring MVC based application. But there is support for Spring Webflux as well. Instead of adding uh, this jar file springdoc-openapi UI, we need to add a different jar for Webflux support. Similarly, there is support for Spring Head OS and then Spring Data REST, Spring Security, and also Spring Native. And there is support for Actuator. If you want to show all the Actuator endpoints also in our REST API documentation, we can enable it. And then there are a lot of customization options it provides. Like uh, here, if you scroll down, so here, springdoc-openapi provides a lot of properties that you can use to customize. Let's say we want to restrict our REST API documentation generation to a few packages. You can specify what packages you want to scan for. So all this, there are a lot of properties that you can customize. Okay. So this is how we can leverage this SpringDoc OpenAPI library and be able to automatically generate the UI. So uh, this really helps when multiple teams are working on. So this really helps in communication across teams. Like you are building one REST API and some other team is going to consume it. So you can simply pass this URL and then they can look at this and then they can understand what are the requests they need to send and what kind of responses they are going to get. It's going to be a very easy to communicate through this REST API documentation. I hope this video is helpful, and thanks for watching.